I'm going to make sure that Dad was never the chosen one, I said. And Uncle Percy, I tried to gentle my voice. I knew that I was talking a bit loudly. If Dad wasn't the boy who lived, who's to say that the Weasleys would fight at all? Not that. I added hastily when he looked offended, that you'd be on the wrong side. But Granddad and Grandma weren't involved at all until Uncle Ron became friends with Dad. They'd be safe. Uncle Percy took a long time to answer, and I had to force myself not to fidget. I had to appear utterly relaxed and confident. I was certain that everything would work out, but Uncle Percy would need me to be totally solid. Did you know? Uncle Percy said. I was there with the twins. We were distracting Voldemort from figuring out that Harry was alive. And I was just behind them, just barely behind them. Fred was killed first, and then George shoved me out of the way. I was his big brother. You know, it would be like if Lily took the curse meant for your body. It's wrong. It should have been the other way around. I didn't say anything. He heaved a great sigh. What memory do you need? Halloween, I said. 1981. Does it have to be of your dad, he asked. When I found out about it? No, I said. I've already checked. I'll still get there 2 days before. That's when the new moon is. It's difficult to explain, Dash. I know how foci memorial works, he said. He retrieved a small, empty jar and held his wand to his head. Moments later, the jar was filled with the memory. My hand trembled a little when I took it. I was grateful for his help, but it seemed a little too easy. I'd been prepared to try to convince him. Uncle Percy said, save my brothers. I promise, I said. Chapter 6, Percy. Sarah Black married Michael Sanders 3 days before I turned 22. And seeing the grim look on James' face, I was able to put aside the fact that I was going to head into the past in just 1 week. I am somewhat of an expert in sour romantic feelings, thanks to Emily Wilder, who, ironically, works in the love division of the Department of Mysteries. So I grabbed 2 glasses of fire whiskey and sat down at the far table with him. Cheers, I said. He gulped it down. You're staring at her, I told him. I don't give a shit, he said angrily. He summoned a bottle of fire whiskey with his wand. I sat with him in silence for a few minutes while he drank almost relentlessly. James and I are about as different as night and day. He sleeps with pretty much everything in a skirt, and I hold my one and only kiss in a place of honor. Oh, I hated her for pretty much ruining me for any other girl. James is brash and reckless while I'm quiet, and while I'm reckless, considering the fact that I was about to head off to change the world as we knew it, I have to admit that I'm probably not the most cautious person in the world. I wish Dad was here, James said. I didn't say anything, but I have to admit that I felt a little smug. If everything went according to plan, James would never have to live in a world when Dad died so young. I looked around for Mom, knowing that I probably wouldn't find her. Weddings made her cry, but not in the good way. I knew that she was probably thinking about Dad. I felt another wave of surety that I was doing the right thing. The Potter family would finally be whole again, and I'd be responsible for the happiness. I'm going to save him. Do you even miss Dad? James asked accusingly, cutting through my happy thoughts. I was incredulous. Of course I miss Dad, you get. I said forcefully. How can you even ask me that? You just never talk about him anymore, said James. He sounded very young all of a sudden. I couldn't deny that. I didn't really bring him up, but not because I didn't miss him, but because I had this huge secret and I was afraid that if I talked about it, it would spill out. And I had a greater understanding of the wariness Mom and Uncle Ron had for time travel in general. But I was now a professional. When they had screwed things up, they'd been unaware of the laws. But after 5 years in the Department of Mysteries private research, and even reading all sorts of Muggle books, though this was mainly for enjoyment, The Once and Future King was my favorite because I sort of felt like Merlin. I was ready. It hurts, I said. James took another sip. He didn't say anything, but just nodded again. His eyes drifted again over to where Sarah danced with her older brother. She looked very happy, and I didn't blame James for drinking. I was pretty amazed at his resilience. I wondered if he'd come to the wedding just to torture himself. I thought she'd wait, James said. Isn't that stupid? She's practically a goddess. Of course she found someone else. I couldn't help it. I thought of Wilder, and how I was really glad that I'd never heard of her dating anyone. Before I decided to go back in time, I think that hearing about her dating some unpleasant bloke would have killed me. I patted my pocket, suddenly uncomfortable. The paper that I carried around with me everywhere I went was still there. I could be honest and admit that saving Dad might have many different meanings for my life. Like a ripple effect, I guess. I didn't think that that horrible day in Hogsmeade would have happened, for instance. I won't lie and say that I haven't thought about it every once in a while. But in a general way, I could just see how much better all of our lives would be with Dad still here. I'd emerge from the past to find him waiting, scarless, and then I'd tell him everything. And he would laugh at first, trying to envision a world where he was the boy who lived, where he'd lived such a harrowing life and had died young. He might even thank me, but I could tell him that it was worth it, and that it was just my thanks to him. I could practically hear it. "Al, thank you," he'd say. He'd have his arm wrapped around Mom, and she'd be weeping. "I am so proud of you." "It was worth it, Dad," I'd say earnestly. "Always and always." "Al," James asked, interrupting my thoughts once more. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing," I said. "I need to go find Uncle Percy." "He already left." James shrugged. "You know how he is. I think he said he went to the shop." After Uncle Percy and Aunt Audrey had divorced, he had spent almost all of his time at Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. I couldn't blame him for wanting to stay away from weddings. I wasn't given all the particulars, but I knew that Uncle Percy had been quite broken-hearted. I knew that I was about to take advantage of him, but it really was for the greater good. No one else would be too pleased to know what I was planning. I glanced around at the crowded dance floor. Sarah and Michael were swaying slowly in a crowd of enthusiastic dancers. I knew that my presence wouldn't be missed, not with the fire whiskey flowing freely. So I walked out past the tables and disapparated to Diagon Alley. I stuffed my hands in my pockets and walked slowly to the garishly decorated building that was so beloved of wizarding children and students at Hogwarts. And Uncle Percy really did a good job with it. He was really gentle with the children. I used to wonder why he kept this going when he would obviously have been better suited to a job in the ministry. But now I understood with absolute clarity, which was why I'd chosen to approach him. I stood staring at the light in the window for a full minute before I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. "We're closed," Uncle Percy called. "It's just me," I said. "Al?" Uncle Percy asked uncertainly. He came around the side of the counter. He still wore his dress robes, but he wore a flame-retardant apron over it, and his glasses were askew. "Oh yes," I thought. "I've chosen the right person. I need your help," I said firmly. I pulled the paper out of my pocket, the one that outlined the relatively simple process of using a pen sieve to travel time. I stared at it for a moment and then handed it over to him. His brows immediately shot up in surprise. "Al, what the hell is this?" "I'm going back in time to save my dad," I said firmly. I wanted him to know that I was dead serious. "I've come here for a memory." "That's it. Just a memory." He stared at me without comprehension. "But why would you want to go back?" he asked. "Because Voldemort killed him," I said. "He may not have been able to use the killing curse, but he killed him just the same. The healer said that he just had a weak constitution, and I know that Voldemort contributed to that." I started to pace. Dad was the strongest man I knew, and if he had a weak constitution, it was because he was hit by the killing curse twice. 3 times if you count the first final battle. It felt really good to finally put all of this into words. "What is it you intend to do?" His brows slammed together, and he looked like a Muggle cartoon character.